Most people will never master their lives because they've never learned to master their minds. Every scroll, every notification, every distraction is silently training your brain to obey chaos. But what if you could rewire it? What if you could train your mind to become calm under pressure, focused in storms, and unshakable in a world that wants you weak? This isn't self-help hype. This is Stoic focus training. This is self-focused discipline. This is a mental revolution. Today's world doesn't want you awake. It wants you to react, compare, consuming. But once you learn to reclaim your attention, you stop being a product and start being the commander. This video will show you how to build a mind so strong that it becomes your greatest weapon. You'll learn practical steps to train your mind daily, apply Stoic habits to eliminate distractions, and discover how to build mental discipline through silence. If you've ever felt mentally scattered, overstimulated, or powerless, you're not broken, you're just untrained. But that changes now, because self-focus is a superpower. And when you use it with intention, you become unstoppable. So if you're ready to reclaim control, to build mental clarity and create a daily Stoic focus routine that actually works, then lock in. This isn't motivation, this is Stoicism for attention control. This is the path back to your true self. Comment, "I am awake now." If you're ready to reclaim your mind, let the world know you've chosen a different path. And if this message speaks to you, don't just watch, lock in, subscribe, hit the bell. I like the video because this isn't entertainment, this is mental armor. And this channel is where warriors train. We're just getting started. 1. Self-focus isn't escape, it's precision. They'll tell you that pulling back means giving up, that saying no is a weakness, that silence is avoidance. But the truth is quieter than all of that, and more dangerous. You weren't born distracted. You were taught to scatter your attention, taught that being everywhere means you're doing something, taught that staying busy is the same as being in control. But it's not. Most people aren't focused, they're just reacting faster. Most aren't present, they're just overwhelmed at a higher speed. Self-focus breaks that cycle. But it's not what the world thinks it is. It's not about cutting ties, isolating, or walking away from people. It's not about disappearing. It's about precision. You're not avoiding life. You're finally learning how to aim. Most people think focus means shutting the world out, turning off your phone, ignoring messages, saying no to people. And yes, all of that may help, but it's not the point. True focus isn't isolation. It's intention. It's precision. It's choosing with absolute clarity what deserves your energy and what doesn't. And that kind of self-focus isn't passive. It doesn't hide. It leads. You're not running from the world. You're just no longer letting it run you. There's a difference between reacting to everything and responding to what actually matters. There's a difference between being available and being aligned. Self-focus means you stop offering your mind to anything that knocks. It means choosing what deserves your energy instead of letting the world decide for you. And that shift from random reaction to intentional selection is where real power begins. Most people walk around on mental autopilot. They think they're in control because they're doing so much. But activity without clarity is chaos with a better outfit. You don't need more hustle. You need more awareness. You need to know when to pull in, not to hide, but to calibrate. This is where Stoic philosophy becomes more than words on ancient pages. The Stoics didn't seek silence because they feared conflict. They chose it because they knew distraction is the first step to defeat. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, yet every night he wrote to himself, not to remind the world who he was, but to remember what not to forget. That the mind must be commanded, that the self must be reclaimed daily, that without inner precision, outer success is hollow. Today, your empire looks different. It's made of notifications, endless updates, dopamine loops designed to keep your brain begging for more. It's built on the myth that more means better, that busy means worthy, that overstimulation is somehow a sign of relevance. But you know better now. Self-focus doesn't scream. It doesn't need to. It's not about proving anything. It's about protecting everything that matters. Your clarity, your direction, your mind. And here's what makes it rare. Self-focus isn't passive, it's assertive. Every time you choose to say no to distraction, you are saying yes to something deeper. Every time you step back from chaos, you are stepping into alignment. This is not running. This is returning to yourself. Think about how often you've let noise dictate your day. How often you've opened your phone with one small task in mind, only to wake up 45 minutes later inside someone else's story, someone else's urgency. That's not accidental. That's architecture. Your attention is a currency, and the world is a marketplace hungry to spend it for you. But self-focus says, not today. Not this moment. Not this breath. You're not selfish for choosing your peace. You're not cold for guarding your clarity. You are simply remembering that no one can master their life until they master where their mind goes. And no one can master their mind until they realize focus is not default. It is designed. You design it in silence. You sharpen it through discipline. You protect it by turning away from the things that drain and choosing the few things that build. The modern world glorifies being plugged in. But the Stoic world trained you to plug into your own judgment first. They taught that clarity comes from within, not from the crowd. That purpose isn't found in the feed, but in stillness, reflection, and the refusal to be pulled in every direction. So now you choose. Do you continue reacting, proving, responding to noise? Or do you begin crafting a new rhythm, one built on intentional thought, unshakable boundaries, and a mind that moves like a blade, sharp, focused, and deliberate? Say it with certainty, I choose what deserves my attention. Because if you don't, someone else already has. 2. Be the gatekeeper of your mind. Every day your mind is under siege, not with bombs, not with weapons, but with noise, opinions, notifications, algorithms, judgment, false urgency. The world doesn't need to break your body, it only needs to walk through the front door of your mind. And for most people, that door is wide open. They don't even realize it. The way you wake up and reach for your phone before you take a breath. The way you absorb the emotions of a stranger through a headline you didn't ask to see. The way one comment online ruins your mood for the entire day. These aren't coincidences. These are permissions, given silently, repeated daily, until your mind no longer belongs to you. Stoic wisdom teaches us something powerful. If you don't guard your inner world, the outer world will claim it. You may think you're choosing what to focus on, but if you're not intentional, if you're not vigilant, you're just reacting to whatever knocks the loudest. There's a reason Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. It wasn't philosophy, it was protection. It was clarity, and it was a command. Because the Stoics knew something the modern world has forgotten. The mind is sacred space, and sacred space needs boundaries. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people treat their minds like train stations. Anyone can walk in. Thoughts come and go without inspection. Emotions drop in unannounced. Fear, comparison, envy, shame, they sit down and make themselves at home. You wouldn't leave your house unlocked overnight. Why would you leave your mind wide open 24/7? Let's make this real. There was a man I met named Elijah. He worked in finance in New York City. High pressure, constant alerts, always plugged in. At one point, he was managing 3 screens, juggling trades, monitoring the market, checking Slack, emails, and CNBC, all at once. He told himself he was in control, that he was staying sharp. But at night, he couldn't sleep. His thoughts were no longer his. His heart rate spiked from a Twitter notification. His mind, he said, felt like an airport terminal with no security. Everything flew in, nothing got screened. Until one day, it broke. He couldn't focus. He forgot the details. He panicked over small things. His therapist said, "You're not burnt out from doing too much. You're burnt out from letting in too much." That hit him, and it changed him. Elijah didn't quit his job. He didn't move to a monastery. He just started guarding the gates. No phone for the first 30 minutes of his day. No screen after 9 p.m. Silent walks every lunch break. No podcast, no music. Just breath and clarity. Every thought, he asked, does this belong here? Does this serve me? That shift saved him, because it reminded him of something we all forget. Mental resilience is not just what you do, it's what you allow. You see, the world profits from an unguarded mind. It sells through urgency. It wins when you react instead of reflect. That's why every platform wants access to you, not to serve you, but to keep you distracted, confused, emotionally hijacked. Because if you're reactive, you're predictable. And if you're predictable, you're profitable. But when you become the gatekeeper, When you stop letting every thought, every voice, every signal flood in, you start to think with intention. You start to feel on purpose. You start to build what Stoics call the inner citadel. That's not indifference, that's awareness. When someone cuts you off in traffic and you choose calm over rage, that's guarding your gate. When a message comes through and you choose to respond tomorrow, not now, that's clarity. When everyone else is doom scrolling and you're journaling quietly in the dark, that's power. Because now, you've stopped being a consumer of mental noise. Now you're the commander of your attention. Think about it. How many thoughts in your day were actually chosen by you? How many beliefs have you absorbed without even asking, is this true for me? How often do you stop and ask yourself, do I even want this energy inside me? That's the level of self-focus the Stoics lived by. And that's the level of clarity the world is desperate to keep you from reaching. So you must decide. You can't control what knocks, but you always control what gets in. That's the role of a gatekeeper. Not to shut the world out completely, but to become ruthlessly selective about what stays. Let the storm knock. Let the chaos scream. Let the crowd beg for your attention. You don't answer the door every time someone shows up. You stand at the gate, you assess, and you choose. Deliberately. Because your mind is not a hallway, it's a fortress. And you are the only one who can guard it. Say it with conviction. Not everything gets access to me. Because when you start filtering the world, you start finding yourself. 3. Silence isn't empty, it's truth, unfiltered. When was the last time you sat in complete silence and didn't try to escape it? Not with a podcast, not with background music, not with your phone quietly glowing beside you. Just you, your breath, your thoughts. No distractions, no filters, nothing pizzer-forming for your attention. Most people say they want peace, but the truth is, they're terrified of what peace requires. Because real peace, the kind that heals, the kind that transforms, begins with silence. And silence doesn't flatter your ego. It doesn't entertain your boredom. It doesn't fill the void with dopamine. It fills it with you. That's why silence feels uncomfortable at first. It strips away the noise that numbs. It reveals the thoughts you've buried, the pain you've postponed, the truths you've avoided. In the silence, your real self shows up. The Stoics didn't fear silence. They sought it, not because they were antisocial, not because they rejected the world, but because they understood something most people still don't. When the world is loud, clarity is found in stillness. Marcus Aurelius wrote his Meditations not as a book for others, but as a journal to himself. Written in the quiet. He ruled armies, he led a crumbling empire. But each night he sat in silence with his thoughts. No filters, no distractions, just reflection, clarity, and command. And if one of the most powerful men in history needed that silence to lead his own mind, what makes you think you don't? The problem isn't that the world is noisy. The problem is that you've forgotten what stillness sounds like. Today, silence is treated like a void, like a punishment. We avoid it because we've trained our brains to panic the moment stimulation stops. We scroll not because we're curious, but because we're afraid of what we'll hear if everything else goes quiet. But that discomfort, that tension you feel when silence sets in, it's not a sign that something is wrong. It's a sign that something real is about to speak. There's a reason monks seek solitude. There's a reason Stoics retreat inward, because silence isn't absence, it's presence without performance. And presence is rare. Let me tell you a story. Years ago, there was a woman named Claire. She was a high-performing creative director in a fast-paced ad agency. Her days were filled with brainstorming meetings, client calls, design reviews, Slack pings, push notifications, and a relentless culture of always on. She thought she was thriving, but one weekend, she attended a silent meditation retreat, something she did only because a friend dragged her along. No talking, no screens, no music, just stillness. By the second day, she couldn't handle it. She broke into tears during breakfast, not because anything was wrong outside, but because for the first time, she could actually hear herself inside. The sadness she never processed, the guilt she had buried, the confusion she had ignored, it all surfaced. She told me, I realized I had built my life around escaping silence. I wasn't scared of quiet, I was scared of clarity. That retreat didn't fix everything overnight, but it changed her compass. Now, every Sunday, she takes 2 hours in total silence. No content, No planning, no productivity, just reflection, awareness, listening. Because here's what she learned and what the Stoics knew all along. Silence isn't the absence of sound, it's the presence of self. When you strip away the inputs, what's left is not emptiness. It's true. And yes, it will be uncomfortable. Yes, it will confront you. But if you sit with it long enough, it starts to guide you. That's where real self-focus begins. Not when you add more, but when you subtract. When the mind gets still, the soul starts to speak. And in that space, your priorities reorder themselves. You realize most of what you chased wasn't yours. Most of what you feared wasn't real. Most of what you thought was urgent wasn't important. That's what silence reveals. So if you say you want clarity, prove it. Stop reaching for the noise the moment discomfort appears. Sit with it. Stay. Listen. Not to the world, not to others, to yourself. To the quiet truth that doesn't shout, but always knows. Because if you can't sit in silence with yourself, you'll never be able to trust the decisions that come from chaos. And if you don't trust your own mind, you'll borrow the thoughts of everyone else. That's not theokos. That's fragmentation. Stoicism isn't about suppressing emotions. It's about facing them in stillness until they lose the power to control you. It's about training your mind to be your ally, not your saboteur. And silence is the battlefield where that training begins. So here's your invitation, not to retreat from the world, but to return to your center, not to shut out life, but to tune into it without interference. One breath, one pause, one silent moment at a time. Say it with presence. My silence is sacred. Because when you begin to honor the quiet, you begin to command the chaos. 4. Discipline is not a skill, it's an art of war. You say you want to master your mind, but what are you doing when no one is watching? It's easy to post about focus, easy to talk about goals, easy to say you're working on yourself. But real self-mastery doesn't happen in the spotlight. It happens in the quiet, in the repetition, in the moments you want to give in, but don't. Discipline isn't a trait. It's not talent. It's not something you're born with or something you get from reading books. It's a war you fight inside yourself, every single day. And if you don't fight it consciously, you lose it silently. You lose it the moment you break your word to yourself. You lose it the moment you give in to distraction and call it rest. You lose it when you let emotion drive the car and call it passion. The Stoics didn't separate clarity from discipline. They knew both were forged in the same fire. A calm mind without control is a candle in the storm, it won't last. A disciplined mind is the shield, the sword, the strategy, the structure that allows peace to survive under pressure. In a world designed to steal your focus, keeping it is rebellion. In a culture that rewards instant gratification, choosing consistency is a weapon. Not against others, against your lower self. The part of you that wants ease, comfort, excuses. Shortcuts. But every excuse costs something. A day, a habit, a piece of your power. And every act of discipline gives something back. Strength, self-respect, momentum, precision. You don't need to do more. You need to do the right things, and do them even when motivation disappears. That's the edge. Anyone can act when they feel like it, but the one who trains himself to act when it's hard, that's the one who becomes unstoppable. Stop thinking of discipline as punishment. Start seeing it as devotion, not to perfection, but to purpose. Discipline is choosing structure when the world chooses chaos. It's waking up early not because it's trendy, but because your vision demands it. It's saying no to noise, not to impress someone, but because clarity is your non-negotiable. It's stepping away from the screen, not because you hate entertainment, but because you value your attention more than cheap stimulation. Discipline is taking that one deep breath when your mind screams to react. It's writing your thoughts down when you'd rather scroll. It's showing up to the quiet work when your ego craves validation. It's remembering that the person you're becoming will only emerge if the current version of you steps out of the way. Every day, there are two voices inside you. One whispers comfort, the other whispers growth. One wants ease, the other wants edge. And every decision you make feeds one or the other. Who are you feeding right now? Most people wait for the feeling to come before they act. But those who understand the art of war don't wait. They move, they strike, they execute, because they've trained their bodies and minds to obey vision, not emotion. That's what self-discipline does. It removes the option of negotiation. It creates a mental battlefield where your choices are no longer swayed by temporary urges, but ruled by long-term alignment. When you say, "I'll do it later," you're teaching your brain that commitment is flexible. When you scroll instead of focus, you're reinforcing that pleasure wins over purpose. When you quit early, you're conditioning weakness and calling it rest. But when you keep going, despite the resistance, your nervous system learns something new. It learns that you can feel the craving and still choose clarity. It learns that you can feel lazy and still move forward. It learns that your standards are higher than your impulses. And that's when the game changes. The modern mind is trained to be reactive. Stimulus response, trigger reaction, feel, act, repeat. Discipline breaks that loop. It inserts a pause, a breath, a space where reason can speak louder than craving. You become the general of your internal army. Every action becomes deliberate. Every choice becomes a building block, not just for goals, but for character, for sovereignty. Because if you don't have discipline, it doesn't matter what you know. It doesn't matter what you believe. It doesn't matter what you want. Without discipline, your life will always be ruled by mood. And mood is a terrible master. The Stoics trained not for applause, but for endurance. They didn't just study wisdom, they lived it under pressure. They didn't seek discipline for validation, but because they knew, when chaos rises, only the trained mind remains unshaken. So train yours. Don't wait for the perfect time. Don't ask for permission. Don't crave comfort, crave strength. Wake up when you say you will. Do the work when no one sees it. Stand tall when the weak fold. And when the mind tells you, "Not today," you look it in the eye and say, "Watch me." Say it like you mean it. I don't negotiate with distraction. Because discipline isn't something you do, it's who you become. 5. Don't live in glass, build the fortress. Just keep in mind, the more we value things outside our control, the less control we have. Epictetus. You can't build a life of power inside a structure made of glass, yet most people do. They wake up and hand their thoughts to notifications. They start their day already invaded. Emails, messages, other people's urgency. Their peace? Exposed. Their focus? Fragmented. Their energy? Scattered before the first sip of coffee. That's not a mind, that's a hallway anyone can walk through. If every opinion rattles you, if every problem feels personal, if every minor delay triggers a spiral, it's not because the world is too loud. It's because your walls are too thin. And what you need is not more self-help quotes pinned to your fridge. What you need is structure. What you need is the discipline to build something impenetrable around the one place no one should have access to without your permission. Your mind. The Stoics called this the inner citadel, a fortress of reason, clarity, and self-command. And they built it brick by brick, thought by thought, boundary by boundary. You don't need a perfect life to be calm. You need a protected space where chaos is observed, not absorbed. You need a place where emotions knock but don't storm the gates. Where fear shows up but doesn't get to lead. Where distraction dances at your window but never gets invited inside. That's what the fortress gives you, command, not control over everything, but over yourself. Imagine walking through your day like this, completely unmoved by passive aggression, untouched by gossip, unfazed by the algorithm trying to spike your dopamine. You're not cold, you're not emotionless, you're fortified. And that difference changes everything. When someone sends you a snide comment, you don't collapse, you pause. When plans shift unexpectedly, you don't lose it, you breathe. When everyone's panicking about things beyond their reach, you zoom in on what's within yours. That's not detachment, that's design. And it's not magic, it's built. But most people won't build it. Because it's uncomfortable to guard your gates. It's uncomfortable to say no when everyone else says yes. It's uncomfortable to sit in stillness while others numb themselves with noise. But here's the truth, they're uncomfortable too. They just choose a different kind of discomfort, the one that comes from being constantly invaded. The one that comes from saying yes when they mean no. The one that comes from being a glass house in a world of flying stones. You don't need to live like that, and you won't. Because today, you begin construction. Not with hammers or nails, but with decisions. You decide who gets access to your energy. You decide what gets a reaction. You decide when silence speaks louder than shouting. And you hold that line, not out of arrogance, but out of self-respect. Every time you resist the pull of reactivity, you place a stone. Every time you say not now to a distraction, you reinforce a wall. Every time you turn inward instead of chasing approval, you tighten the gates. This is how you build it, moment by moment, until one day the world no longer enters without knocking. Until one day you wake up and your peace doesn't feel negotiable, it feels non-refundable. That's the power of the inner fortress. Not just to survive chaos, but to walk through it untouchable. Not just to appear calm, but to become unmoved from the core. It doesn't mean you don't feel. It means your feelings don't lead you off course. It means your clarity is louder than their noise. It means your boundaries are no longer walls of defense. They're structures of purpose. So look around. Are you building a sanctuary or living in a glass box pretending to be strong while everything gets in? Are you reacting to every ping, every post, every passing emotion, or choosing with ruthless clarity what's allowed to stay? Because if you're not building your mental fortress, the world is already living in your mind. Rent-free, loud, unfiltered. And the longer you delay, the more scattered you become. But the moment you decide to build, everything shifts. Your thoughts slow down, your focus sharpens, your strength consolidates, and you begin to feel something rare in the modern world: control. Not over others, not over outcomes, but over yourself. That's real power. That's Stoic power. That's what they feared in men and women who said little but stood unshaken. So build quietly, hold your structure, refuse to be glass. And when the world comes knocking, let it find a gate, not an opening. Let it find walls carved from awareness. Let it find a mind too grounded to be shaken, too clear to be provoked, too focused to be pulled. 6. Let go of what you can't command. You will never master your life if you keep trying to control what was never yours to hold. And that's the problem. Not the chaos, not the pressure, but your silent addiction to control. Your obsession with managing every outcome, every opinion, every timeline, every person's reaction, every version of the future that hasn't even happened yet. You carry it all like armor, thinking it protects you, but it doesn't. It crushes you. The Stoics saw this clearly. Epictetus said, "There is only one way to happiness, and that is to cease worrying about things which are beyond the power of our will." He wasn't teaching apathy. He was teaching freedom. The kind of freedom that begins the moment you stop wrestling with the wind. The kind of freedom that only exists when your mind is no longer hostage to the external. But modern life doesn't want you to let go. It feeds you the lie that total control equals total power. That if you just optimize more, hustle more, and calculate more, you can finally rest. But you can't. Because every ounce of energy spent chasing what you cannot command steals from what you can. You don't control the algorithm. You don't control the traffic. You don't control what they say or how they respond or whether they understand you. You don't even control the next thought that arises in your head. But you control what you choose to do with it. And that's the key. Power isn't controlling more. It's controlling better. It's drawing the line between what's in your hands and what isn't, and never crossing it again with your energy, your attention, or your identity. Because when you carry what isn't yours, you break under the weight of what you could have mastered. Your discipline weakens, your clarity fogs, your focus fades. Not because you failed, but because you fought the wrong battle. You can meditate every morning, but if you spend the rest of your day trying to fix other people, replay old conversations, or predict what hasn't happened, you've already lost. Letting go is not a weakness. Letting go is elite awareness. It's high-level focus. It's choosing to win where you can instead of bleeding energy where you can't. It looks like this. The message is left on read, and your peace doesn't flinch. The meeting is canceled, and you move, not complain. The project goes wrong, and you don't collapse into blame. You adapt. Because your peace isn't tied to outcomes, it's rooted in effort. And that's what makes you untouchable. Effort without emotional debt. Action without obsession. Presence without control. That's self-focus. That's mental clarity. That's power in a world full of reaction. The most dangerous people are not those who yell the loudest or fight the hardest. The most dangerous are those who only invest in what they command, who doesn't spend emotional capital on variables they can't shape, who walk through storms with dry feet because they only protect what's inside. But this isn't easy. Your ego won't like it. Your pride wants to prove, to fix, to control. Letting go feels like surrender, but it's not. It's a strategic retreat. It's weaponized stillness. It's stepping back to focus your force inward, where your real strength lives. So what do you need to release? That argument from yesterday? That judgment from someone who doesn't know your life? That fear of what might go wrong next month? That timeline you thought you'd be on by now? Let it all go. Not because you don't care, but because you finally care enough to stop bleeding energy into what gives nothing back. Letting go is not giving up. It focuses in, and the mind that focuses inward becomes unshakable. That's the way of the Stoic. That's the path to self-command. Not a life free of pressure, but a life free from wasted force. You were not born to chase everything. You were born to choose. You were born to aim. You were born to build a mind that doesn't flinch just because the world won't behave. So release the need to be understood. Release the urgency to fix every wrong. Release the timelines, the tension, the emotional contracts with things you don't command, and reclaim what's always been yours. Your mind, your focus, your breath, your next move. Because when you stop trying to move what's immovable, you become unstoppable in what matters. You stop spinning, you start building. You stop drowning, you rise. Calm, clear, certain. Say it now and say it like you mean it. I drop what I can't direct, because your attention is a resource, and where you spend it is what you become. 7. Turn focus into ritual, not reaction. Before we begin, let me tell you a story. He was ambitious, sharp, and always on. Every hour was optimized. Calendar full, notifications constant. He called it productivity. He wore his exhaustion like a badge of honor. But beneath the noise, something was breaking. His focus was reactive, fueled by urgency, hijacked by expectations. He responded to everything, until one morning his body forced a pause. Anxiety, mental fog, decision fatigue. He didn't burn out because he was lazy. He burned out because his focus had no structure, no rhythm, no defense. That's the reality for most people. They don't lack drive, they lack ritual. Discipline without rhythm is just chaos in disguise. Focus without structure is just intensity waiting to collapse. You don't need more urgency, you need more design. You need focus that's ritualized, chosen, sharpened, protected. We live in a culture addicted to instant response. We chase tasks like fires, react to every vibration in our pocket like it's life or death. But when your attention is always on call, your mind becomes a servant, not a commander. True focus isn't about doing more. It's about choosing less, and choosing it again and again until it becomes automatic. That's the shift, from reacting to life to designing it, from sprinting through the day to anchoring it, from waiting for clarity to building the space where clarity can land. Focus is not a switch you flip when you need it. It's a system you train, a discipline you install into the foundation of your day. Like a soldier rehearsing drills, like a monk returning to breath, like a Stoic reviewing his thoughts before sleep. Ritual is what separates clarity from chaos. It turns intentions into actions. It removes the guesswork. You no longer wonder if you'll stay focused. You've built the ritual that guarantees it. So what does that ritual look like? It starts before the noise begins, before the world wakes up, before the algorithm invades. 10 minutes of silence, not for performance, not for checking boxes, but to create space, to reclaim your mind, to tell your brain, this day begins on my terms, not theirs. Then you define your mission, not a to-do list of 30 things, one thing, one needle mover, one act that makes everything else easier or unnecessary. You block time for it, you defend it. No multitasking, no divided attention, no explaining, just full presence, like a warrior on the field. Because that's what real work demands. No pressure. Not hustle, but presence. Throughout the day, you audit your attention, you catch your mind drifting, and you ask, is this useful? Is this mine? And if the answer is no, you cut it. No shame, no drama, just redirection. Like a trained sniper, adjusting aim. Quiet, precise, relentless. Then you close the day with intention, not with scrolling. Not with exhaustion, but with reflection. 5 minutes. What pulled your focus today? What strengthened it? What needs to be adjusted tomorrow? This is not ritual for ritual's sake. This is engineering. This is installing clarity into the operating system of your life. Because the truth is this, the world doesn't reward potential. It rewards consistency. The mind doesn't thrive on bursts of energy. It thrives on rhythm. And if your focus is only strong when you feel motivated, you're already compromised. Ritual gives you a platform to rise from, regardless of mood. It turns discipline into muscle memory. It creates internal gravity so strong that distraction bounces off. This is not about being rigid. It's about being ready. When the pressure comes, you don't scramble, you execute. When the chaos hits, you don't collapse. You return to your anchor, because it's already there and you built it. Don't wait for life to slow down. Don't hope for the world to get quieter. Build the stillness into your structure. Build the focus into your flow. This isn't about being extreme, it's about being exact. You don't need to control everything. You just need to stop letting everything control you. That's the purpose of ritual, not to restrict you, but to release you. From noise, from impulse, from the slavery of reactivity. You've seen what reactive focus looks like. You've lived it. The exhaustion, the fragmentation, the regret. But now you've felt something different. The edge that comes when your attention is yours, the clarity that appears when stillness is honored, the confidence that grows when your days are built, not just survived. So don't let this be another idea you hear and forget. The ritual doesn't begin tomorrow, it begins now. One breath, one decision, one focused moment that becomes a pattern. That pattern becomes a habit. That habit becomes identity, and that identity becomes power. 8. When you own your mind, you master your life. Every decision begins in thought. Every reaction is born from perception. Every direction you take, every relationship you keep, every boundary you enforce, every habit you repeat flows from the quality of your mind. That's why the most important territory you'll ever conquer isn't the world, it's what lives between your ears. The battlefield is within, and until you claim it, everything outside will control you. When you don't own your mind, you chase things that don't belong to you. You confuse noise with purpose. You live by reaction instead of vision. Your day belongs to circumstances. Your emotions belong to others. Your attention belongs to whatever speaks the loudest. That's not mastery. That's mental slavery dressed up as staying busy. That's survival without sovereignty. But the moment you decide, deeply, relentlessly, that your mind is yours, the game changes. You stop explaining yourself to people who will never understand your vision. You stop defending your peace like it's optional. You stop apologizing for focus. You stop shrinking to make others comfortable. Because a claimed mind doesn't ask for permission to be disciplined. It moves through life with quiet conviction. It doesn't avoid chaos. It simply refuses to serve it. And here's the truth. When you own your mind, the outer world starts to move differently. Not because it changed, but because you did. That moment, you stop checking your phone first thing in the morning and choose silence instead. You've shifted your reality. That moment you say no to a conversation that drains your clarity. You've redrawn the map of your inner world. That moment you choose a deep breath over a reactive outburst. You've changed your legacy in real time. This is the power no one talks about. The invisible power of self-command. Of being calm, not because things are easy, but because your identity is no longer tied to the chaos. The storm can rage around you, but it doesn't dictate your direction. You do. Think about how your life shifts when your mind becomes anchored. Your relationships become cleaner. You don't entertain drama. You don't fall into guilt traps. You choose conversations that align with clarity, not emotional bait. Your work becomes deeper. You're not bouncing from task to task, chasing urgency. You're creating from stillness, not pressure. Your mornings are owned. Your evenings are protected. Your decisions are slower, but sharper. Your presence gets louder, even when your voice doesn't. That's what happens when you stop outsourcing your attention. That's what happens when your values become unshakable, not just inspiring. You stop being pulled into everything that moves. You move what matters. It's not about controlling thoughts. It's about choosing which ones get to stay. It's not about never feeling anxious. It's about mastering your response when it comes. You don't need a perfect mind to master your life. You need a trained one. One that doesn't chase comfort at the cost of growth. One that doesn't believe every fear it hears. One that questions its own narratives and rewrites them with clarity. You will still face pressure. You will still face rejection. You will still be misunderstood. But when your mind is yours, you don't panic. You pivot. You don't fall. You adapt. You don't lose yourself trying to win the world. You remain whole even when the world tries to pull you apart. You stop looking for power and titles, applause, or validation. You carry it inside. Quiet, grounded, disciplined. And from that place, you move. From that place, you lead. From that place, you live. It's not that the world becomes easier, it's that you become stronger than the noise. So ask yourself, who owns your mind right now? Your past, your fear, the culture, the opinions of people who don't live your life? Or do you? Because if the answer isn't you, then nothing you build will last. Not your habits, not your focus, not your peace. But if the answer is you, if today is the day you reclaim your mind with unshakable clarity, then everything changes. Not all at once, but brick by brick, ritual by ritual, choice by choice. You don't fix your life by force. You master it by mastering what you allow inside. So start there. Own your thoughts, own your breath, own your responses, own your silence. Own your power, not through control, but through clarity. Because when you own your mind, you own the only thing that truly shapes your life, your perception. And when perception is clear, your path becomes undeniable. You stop waiting for change, you become the change. Not loudly, not publicly, but deeply. Say it now, calm, certain, final. My mind is mine. And when that's true, nothing can move you unless you let it. Everything begins and ends in the mind, your focus, your clarity, your peace, your pain, your patterns, your power. All of it flows from one place, your ability to command your inner world when the outer world gets loud. And it will get loud. Distractions will keep knocking. The world will keep pulling. People will still misunderstand your silence. They'll call your focus distance. They'll call your discipline cold. Let them, because you're not here to be understood. You're here to be aligned. You're not here to react. You're here to build. You're not here to survive noise. You're here to rise above it. Quietly, fiercely, completely. The Stoics didn't teach us to escape life. They taught us to master it from the inside out. Through focus, through silence, through discipline, through letting go, through ritual, through the fortress of a mind that cannot be broken because it no longer bends. So the question is no longer if you can do this. It's when you'll decide to take back what's always been yours. Your thoughts, your choices, your path, your power. And when you make that choice, fully, unapologetically, everything changes. Not because the world changes, but because you finally do. Say it for the last time, and let it echo inward. My mind is my weapon, and I am done handing it over.